Welcome to my Gorean cave. Girl, I am Master Chuck. This is where you will learn everything that you need to know to serve me as a true submissive Gorean slave girl. I will now read to you Master Chuck's rules for girls and pets. This is taken from a note card that is handed out on my True Gorean Sim in Second Life.
Okay, but...
Rule number 1. All girls must greet their master as he arrives. This means every time he arrives, if your master does not answer you right away, he is either swamped with IMs or dealing with an issue, so be patient, he will get to you. Rule number 2. All girls are to beg to be excused from the computer for the night, or to get something, etc. unless an emergency occurs, which will be explained upon your return.
Emergency?
Rule number 3. My girls are not permitted to travel without my permission.
You just used the word permission twice in the same sentence. Did you make up these rules yourself?
Rule number 4. My girls are to be respectful to any and all guests, visitors, and members of the city. Enemies are not guests. Do not be disrespectful to them, but you don't have to be all sweet to enemies.
Did that headgear come from World of Warcraft?
Rule number 5. My girls will strive to be pleasing at all times. A little fun is alright, but mind your tongue and your behavior. If you think it might be going too far, it is.
Mind your tongue?
Rule number 6. My girls must show complete respect for their master or mistress. This means at the end of every sentence you must include my master or my mistress, or yes, my master or my mistress, and so on. If you choose to disrespect your master or mistress, you will be dealt with.
Are you sometimes a mistress?
Rule number 7. My girls must maintain a presentable appearance when off my True Gorean island. When on the island they can wear silks, kamisk, be partially or fully nude if no guests are on the island. Rule number 8. My girls must state their devotion to their master at least once a day and whenever asked. There are to be no short answers.
What time is the DJ supposed to get here?
Rule number 9. My girls must beg to help their master regularly.
Is regularity a problem for you?
Rule number 10. My girls must answer their master promptly when asked a question. If there is more than a 3-minute pause to your answer, I will assume you have left the computer without permission and you will be dealt with upon your return. Again, emergencies are allowed and will be explained upon return. Girl? Do you understand these rules so far, girl? Girl, answer me. Rule number 11. My girls must realize their master is busy and cannot always attend to them promptly. Sometimes his mass hysteria of IMs have issues that need to be dealt with and make him slightly frustrated. Please, when your master needs a moment, do not badger him. He will be fine. He just needs to breathe.
Badger, 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 badger.
Rule number 12. You will remember real life comes first, always. But when you are here, you are my Kajira. This was the path you chose, so live it fully, embrace it and learn.
Look. Is anyone else showing up for this event?
Rule number 13. Talk to me when you have a problem and we will work through it together. If you want to go to Earth, talk to me first. The color remains on.
Yes, I do have a problem. I was headed to a St. Patrick's Day party and my teleport failed and I got dropped here at your cave.
Rule number 14. There will be no playing around or messing around sexually with sisters or pets with pets when master is not online. Especially when your master is busy with an issue or needs to build or straighten out things. This is to only be done when he is online. Break this rule and it is like going behind his back and will be dealt with accordingly.
Oh. Finally my friend is TPing me. Gotta go. Bye, Master. Chuck.
Rule number 14. When on the Nadu or bracelets is not required unless we have guests present when out shopping will always go into one of the set positions. Do you have any questions, girl? 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 Lost another one.
To part 3 of a series on being a Gorean master, or a master in general. Some people call it masters or dominants. If you have a slave, they call it a master. If you're in a BDSM sim, they're going to call it a dominant. You're being a dominant as opposed to somebody who's submitting to you. There is no one-size-cuts-all formula for this. What we do know is that what may be a good dominant or a master for one girl may not be the same for another. Women, I've said this before, it was in another tape, you may have heard me say it. Women can sense when the guy's the right fit. And if she's been through a lot of men, she especially can sense it. You reach a point where you're near somebody and you say, yeah, this is somebody I fit with. And if you're just starting out on this journey, maybe not. I've seen people who decided, I'm going to be a master, I'm going to be a dominant, and go out there and really flop at it because they really don't know what they want. So one size doesn't fit all. One may work for one may not work for another. Okay, excellent quote, Magicians of Gore, page 465. It's one thing to own a woman, I said. It's another to have her with the bonds of excellent mastery. You can buy a girl. And one of the problems is a lot of people that are really crappy at being dominants or masters go and just buy one. Here's what happens. The girl accidentally gets lost in the forest. The woman next to me once committed suicide and even held a funeral, and she came back as an alt because the master was so poor. It's easy to buy somebody and say, hey, I'm a master, you're going to be my slave. Not so easy to have her within the bonds of excellent mastery. And that's why this series was created. Another quote, the slave cannot free herself, she can be only freed by an owner. The condition of slavery does not require the collar or the brand or an anklet or a bracelet or a ring or such an overt sign of bondage. Such things are symbolic as they are, as profoundly meaningful as they are, and as useful as they are for making properties, identifying masters and such are not necessary to slavery. Now, that part's real important. I have seen girls, especially in BDSM sims, run around and beg for the collar. They didn't give a hoot who it was, just as long as they had one. In fact, one guy let loose with a few girls. They went and just picked a guy and said, he's now our master, voted him in. The point of it is they just want the collar. But all those symbols of the collar and stuff is purely symbolic, just like this says. And they really of themselves don't have meaning. They express ownership, like your name's on the collar, you're the one that locked the collar. They are in effect, though, affixing and can legally affect embondment. That is, somebody goes and checks the collar, like the Book of Gore says. It should have the master's name on it. Ultimately, in themselves, are tokens of bondage and are not be confused with the reality itself. The uncollared slave is then not a free woman, but only a slave that's not then in a collar. Renegades of Gore, page 273. I have no clue what that sound was. Okay, so basically, it's just a symbol. It doesn't matter if you're a slave, uncollared, you're still a slave. The woman next to me, same way. She has a slave heart. She has it in real life. She has it in second life. Doesn't matter if she has a collar or not. She still has a slave heart. Is only a slave is not then in a collar. It doesn't matter. For those who are, like they said, if you are committed to a person and she's your slave, it really doesn't matter if she has a collar around her neck or not. she's committed to that person and will not break that. Hmm. A lot of people say, hey, I bought you. And the girl's like, so what? You have a collar on me, you don't have my heart. And that is a big deal. All right, number 2, because I always do these cards for those who've been around. I have the quote, I've wondered sometimes if a man to be a man must not, blah, blah, blah. I have wondered sometimes if a man to be a man must not master a woman, and if a woman to be a woman must not know herself mastered. Now, this quote's really interesting. There we go. Strong men simply need women. They will never be understood. That will never be understood by weak men. A strong man needs a woman at his feet who is truly his. I am one of those odd birds, and I told my girls this long before I saw this quote, and I brought this up quite a few months ago. Real life and second life, I have to have a woman with me at my feet, basically. And that's been true of all my life. I think the longest I didn't have a girl was 6 months. I was going through a dry spell. And you're talking, I'm in my 60s now. And the longest, for 50-something years, the longest I didn't have a girl with me is 6 months. For me, a strong man needs a strong woman at his feet who is truly his. Anything else is less than his fulfillment. I don't feel filled and where I need to be unless I have a woman. And a woman at my feet, of someone who basically is mine. When a man has once eaten of the meat of the gods and never again chew the straw of fools, once you sense what it's like to have that woman with you and what it's like, you're not going to take less. Explorers Agora, page 12. I literally believe that for me. Strong men need women. And that will never be understood by weak women. It puts me where I need to be. I feel like I'm where I need to be. And without that, it's like a component of me is missing. So anyway, that's what that quote's about. Like I said that to my girls long before I found that quote. So it's kind of an oddity. Okay. I have lots of quotes. You say, why the quotes? Well, the Gore is based on a set of books by Norman. If you want to know, go down my read list, my playlist. You'll find about who is John Norman and why is Gore important. And he explains exactly who he is. It's based on Gore, although most people say the first 12 books. There's 36 now. The last 10 were written by his son, so I don't necessarily recommend those. But what I'm trying to say is, in order to be in Gore and play Gore, you actually need to read a little. So what I'm doing by doing these audio tapes or YouTube videos is reading for you. Some of you have difficulty on that side, and I'm trying to help you by reading it out. But the fact of the matter is, any role play that you do should be based off those books. And that's why I'm reading all these quotes. I'm trying to back it up. It's like the Bible. And I said, well, how do you be a Christian without the Bible? Well, you don't. That needs to be backed up by quotes. It's the same way with this. Quote, you may continue, I told her. She again bent her head to my body. She knelt beside me in the darkness. Her hands were tied behind her back, the tether on her throat. Stop for a bit, I told her. Yes, master, she said. I felt her cheek against me. She put her head down on my belly. Forgive me for disturbing your rest, master. I know you I know I should not do that. Beat me if you must. I'm not angry, I said. I could not help myself, she said. Though I feared my being beaten, you do not know what it is to be a female slave. I'm so weak. Some people that quote's going to piss off. She's weak in the sense that she wants to please her master, not weak physically or mentally. Okay, here we go, and this explains it. I was so overcome with the desire for my master. I will not be angry, I told her, but don't let it happen too often, for it is I who instruct you as to when to serve my pleasure. Yes, master. And then there's a space in between there. But you are strong, master, she said. You are beautiful, I told her. Okay, so the quote I wanted out of this, the most important part was, it is I who instruct you as to when to serve my pleasure. There are two other tapes before this. This third one I decided would be on basically laying out your rules for the sub or the slave. You Basically, every master should have sat down and figured out what his rules are. I'm going to show you to what extent I did it. I'm actually going to show you a set of rules that I have stored away. But the point of it is, you don't want, let me play a clip for you of a song. And if your slaves are singing this song, chances are something is not right. Let's see, there it is. And you guys have heard this.
Well,
I'm on my way, but I don't know where I'm going.
I'm
On my way.
I'm taking my time, but I don't know where.
Okay, if your slaves are singing that song, there's a definite problem. Or if you hear them humming that music, there's a definite problem. I'm on my way, I don't know where I'm going. Your slave should know where you're going. Your slave should know how to please you. I will instruct you how to serve my pleasure. A directionless slave will soon leave. But she loves me. She's my slave. Doesn't matter. This is how masters. A master is a person who knows A, who he is, B, where he's going. The slave's not on their way and don't know where they're going. C, is able to tell the slave what he needs, not just get angry all the time. And I've seen this happen, where essentially masters will get angry and whip and yell at their slaves and do all kinds of things, and never ever bothered to tell the slave what it was the rules were or what they needed out of them. Or if they did, which is the next tape, by the way, didn't give punishments for when they didn't follow. And I'll discuss that in the last tape. But basically did not enforce the rules. So let's go on. First you should, okay, card 4. First you should know there's no right way to be a master, how to express your domination as invisible as individuals, your footprints. You may choose to be strict and demanding, gentle and nurturing, or any combination in between. One style isn't better than another. Domination is the extension of your own unique personality. Some women love the strict and demanding. I mean, they have to have it. I've run into that. There's one girl in particular, there's one master in particular I know, that's his style. Very, very, and strict punishments. Others want a combination between strict but gentle and nurturing. Okay, a combination between the two. It kind of depends on the woman and her background. When I first started exploring the domination aspects of my personality, I totally failed to appreciate that above. My approach sounded more like this. Quote, from what I observed in others, I come to the conclusion I was supposed to be haughty, uncaring, selfish, demanding, and unforgiving. I watched as other mistresses used the vulnerabilities of slaves to their own selfish ends. None of these traits were a part of my character, but I tried to force them on my personality under the assumption that's the way dominants or masters must be. That didn't last, and I couldn't sustain something I'm not. So don't be what you aren't. Be what you are. If you're a nurturing personality, but hopefully a strong personality, then use it. But if you are a person who is strict, then use that. Needless to say, I wasn't a happy master. I was walking the walk, talking the talk, but I wasn't satisfied with the results. The problem was I was paying attention to the idea that masters or domination is an extension of your own unique personality. I was not paying attention to the idea that domination is an extension of your own unique personality. You need to understand it takes more than carrying a flogger or adding the word master to your chat character to be a dominant. It takes work. And that's why the cartoon, the little thing that I put on before this thing starts, that guy thought he was a master. And he starts reading off all these rules and trying to tell her what she's going to do. And it takes a lot more than that. A lot more. And a woman can sense whether the man knows what he's doing. At least they say they do. All right, here's some things that dominant or a master is. Liberating, nurturing, courteous. Founded upon mutual trust and respect. The trust thing takes time. All of my girls have been, how do I put it, lost trust both in Masters and Gore and in real life. And so when they ran into me, I was on a probationary period. So the point of it is the trust takes time. And a mutual respect. If I don't respect them, they're sure as hell not going to respect me. And they have to sense that respect. Courteous is the don't call them bitch and stuff like that. Some women, by the way, want that, and we'll discuss that. That has to be about knowing the slave or learning about the slave. That's in the tape before this. But the point of it is that courteous in the long run to where they feel like you respect them. Here's what a master is not: abusive, unless the woman particularly is into that particular style. Some women want abuse, demeaning. Again, unless you find out on the tape before this, you find out that's her style, don't demean the girl. Always telling her she's doing badly and she doesn't know what she's doing, doesn't play well. Exploitative. I have run into slaves that exploit the hell out of their masters. You shouldn't be exploiting your girls. They're not there for you to get money from. Some masters think they are. One-sided. There's nothing worse than the girl spends all her time giving you blowjobs and stuff, and essentially you don't give her anything. Now, yes, she's a slave. I get that. But the fact of the matter is, in a long-term relationship, there needs to be a give and take. Something you learned. It's not something you're going to learn in a day, a week, or even a year. You're going to listen to these tapes, I hope, and then think, oh, now I'm going to be a master. It doesn't work that way. You've got to grow into this. It's not for everyone. Ask any woman that's been in Gore for a while. She'll tell you right away. In fact, I just did 2 days ago. I have one of my slaves, and she made the comment that she's been doing this for over 20 years easy. She was doing this before Second Life was around and did the Yahoo groups, things like that. Anybody don't know there was a Yahoo Gore. And I said, I was trying to ask her one question. She answered another, but she said she's been with hundreds of masters. And I said, how many of them were truly masters? And she said, very few. Very, very few out of all the ones. So, no, it's not for everybody. Do they have the master title? You betcha. If you're a male in Gore, you get to be called master. And everybody else gets to be called lady, the females. Great, you got the title. But were you a master? No. She only submitted herself to a few in her heart anyway. Being a master is not domineering. They call it a dominant, but it's not domineering. Again, unless your slave, and that goes back to knowing your person, unless your slave is particularly wanting that, don't try it. Manipulative. I don't like being manipulated by a slave, and that slave sure as hell doesn't want to be manipulated by me. And it's not an excuse to be rude. So that's what a master is not. And a lot of men in Gore totally miss this list. Just don't get it. And they wonder why they can't. I had 5 girls. One's passed away 2 weeks ago. I have 4 girls. I have men offer to buy them. I have men hustle them when we go to the Gorian Hub. I have men. The point of it is, I'm like, hell, man, you can't get your. And I see slavers with no slaves, their own personal slaves. And the question becomes to me, they're not getting something. I mean, you should have somebody. From the moment I entered Second Life, I had somebody with me. I mean, real soon I had a girl, even in Second Life. In real life, I already brought that up. That's not the point. It has to do with who I am as a person. You may not be that person. Now, if you're not a master, what are you? Well, I'd suggest another role play. And definitely do not go to a BDSM sim. Get the well, you got to get a master's tag. A good BDSM sim, you have to earn that tag, not just get it. But the point of it is that it's not for everybody. Hell, you might even be a slave as a guy. I don't know. There are men slaves. That doesn't fit me, but there are men out there. Okay, let's move on. Number 1, have some rules. Okay, this is a set of guidelines that'll help you out. Let's go through these. Number 1, have rules. Over time, of course, each one of us gains insight to what works and what doesn't. It is a wisdom to codify it into rules. Now, here's the trick with that. When I first started out, I found myself getting irritated about certain things when girls did it. And I think over a while I'd realized when this happened, I was irritated. When that went well, I was happy. The problem is I had never sat down, and I'll show you my rules. I had never sat down and systematically wrote out what I wanted. And I'll be honest, if you have not done that, then there's no way in the world you're going to be able to communicate that to your slave. If you don't know what you want, your slaves are not going to know what you want. Your sub is not going to know what you want. And so it is extremely important to sit down and systematically write out what it is you expect. Having rules means that you know yourself. You know what you want, you know what you don't understand, and understand that everyone, including yourself, has limits. I know there's some people who think they have no limits. I've actually seen that in girls' profiles. I had a girl, I asked a girl, she said, oh no, I have no limits. I said, you absolutely sure? She says, yeah, and if we hit it, that's on me. Well, I brought her over, started doing my thing. I'll be damned if the girl didn't fade to black because it was too much for her. She had limits. She didn't know she had limits till she met me. And then suddenly she discovered those limits. It was a really rough play. It wasn't, you don't get what I'm talking about, but it was super rough play. And stuff that she apparently nobody had done that, and she suddenly said, oh, hell, I'm faded to black. They are fooling themselves. We are limited by the rose-colored glasses through which we see the world. Rules help us respect these limits and avoid the troubles encountered when we exceed them. Masters, you need to have your rules written out. Sit down, figure them out. More importantly, and I think that's on the next card, make sure those rules are your rules. Well, you can't. Well, you can tell if you want. Just go out and find some rules and use them. Rules must take their life form from who you are. Rules must reflect the authentic you. If they don't, they're going to be burdensome and unenforceable. You're going to try and force something that really doesn't fit you, and you're not going to, because the tape after that is the punishment side. What do you do if they purposely break them? And the point of it is that you're not going to enforce them. I don't know how many masters, and it actually hacks me off. In Second Life, the rules are slaves kneel. Like the young lady here, Shawnee's kneeling next to me. That is actually what's supposed to happen. I don't know how many girls don't kneel, and the master next to her doesn't say jack about it. It's part of the way it goes. The master doesn't say. The girl's basically running the show. Now, when I'm with him, I actually say kneel. You know, you're with the free, kneel. But it becomes burdensome and unenforceable if it's not you, and there's a whole bunch of so-called masters running around that don't enforce the rules. That they shouldn't be a master in Gore, basically. That doesn't mean you can't borrow a copy of another set of rules. By all means, do so. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. If a master so-and-so has a reason for doing something, you like it, then do it. Just make sure the rules resonate with who you are and what you want. I cannot be too strong in emphasizing on the inner self, knowing the inner self in rule-making column. Here's what I did. I'm not going to show you the books, but I have at least 4 books that you can actually get for free. And I can't show you, but I didn't look it up ahead of time to pull over. I have at least 4 books that are available online that are very specific on how to run families, sub-domineering master-slave families. And they go through all the different rules that they run into. And I literally, plus I had 2 contracts, sample contracts by men who have contracted with their subs. And I went through them, and I looked through the sample contracts. I went through the books that I have that's specific to running a household, real life and Second Life, and sat down and said, what really fits who I am? And that's what I did. And sat down and systematically said, yes, this works. Yes, I like that. And it really reinforced what I'd already been feeling. That is, these are things that I basically knew that was right for me, and why I was irritated when girls didn't do it. One of my pet peeves, I like to have a girl say good morning to me. I love it when the girl's on the line or she comes in and says good morning. I hate it when a girl comes in, I know she's on and hadn't said good morning. That's a pet peeve of mine. I have no clue why, but for me, and my girls say good night. But for me, it's very important for the girl to come on in the morning and say good morning. I kept getting irritated because they weren't doing it. So now I have it in my rules. You come in the morning, say good morning. Let me show you my rules. And then I'm not blowing smoke. There's my agreement document between sub and master created on. And what I do, if you are in a BDSM sim, I do the formal contract with subs, although I don't do that anymore because I don't have any subs. I have 5 slaves or 4. And the point is, I went through, hopefully the camera's catching this, I think it is. I went through and basically defined my role, the dominance role or master's role. Notice in orange, I said I agree not to submit the submissive or slave to any extreme act of service when he might not be in the proper frame of mind to administer it. That is anger, impairment, preoccupation. I'm not going to put her in a position where I'm pissed and basically submissive roles. And I go through, including things like when not in my presence, the sub or submissive will maintain regular contact with me, including informing me of their known schedules and activities. Offline contact is required by Discord. Yes, I actually put that in there for me. It is hell when your girl's not on there and there's no way to know when she's coming on, there's no way to contact her, and you're sitting around. I could substitute Skype for that or anything else. For me, I use Discord. The sub or submissive will respond promptly to all communications from me, and must never make me feel ignored by her. And then I put it on. Real life always takes precedent, or all demands are made by me. Greet master there it is in dark print. Greet master every morning in Discord before starting the day. And then let me know if you've got anything that's bothering you. That's all in there. And I even color coded it. So anyway, I actually listed in different places formal protocol, informal protocol, how to leave my presence, and yes, that is important, basic movement, public protocol, low and club protocols, meaning what if you go to a club and it's not gore, for instance, what's the protocol for that? High and formal protocols, which is on point, is called on point actually, which is trailing about a full step to the right, is called on point. Now that's kind of hard to do. Second line kind of jacks that up. But the point is, see, I color coded and it's all there. Working together, that's what happens if you're poly and you have more than one girl. And yes, I went to that trouble. First girl should provide guidance, assistance, sisterly affection, support, and respect, publicly, professionally, and personally, always with the honor of the dominant in mind. It's my honor they're protecting. When working together, though, the submissives will A, show loyalty to one another, B, not complain to each other or outsiders. Any complaints should be directed to me, and it's highlighted in yellow. Do more than is asked of you. If you're asked to do something, go overboard. Do not refuse help. If I offer help, take it. Be reliable. Be flexible. Anyway, it's all there. And I wanted to show that to you. But I sit down, responses to requests. Yeah, it's pretty thorough. How many pages in is this? It's at least 5 pages. Meetings with other people, alternation of the contract, termination of the contract. So basically, what this boils down to is I went through and very, very systematically listed everything but the kitchen sink. And like I said, if you want them, I can get you a copy of what books I used. There's several really good ones that are practical that I went through, as well as other things. Don't make brittle rules. Number 3, rules are helpful because they add clarity and facilitate discussions. Rules cut in stone become milestones and anchors. Now, I have nothing against either of those things. We need to grind, grain, and anchor the boats. But if you think you can run your dungeon, your slave, or life by a set of rules that are set in concrete, let me give you an example. I've got a girl right now that is breaking a rule, but I'm allowing it to slide a little bit. And what happened is that I prefer for my slaves to communicate with me, but this one's an unusual slave. In real life, when she was real young, she was injured and is not able to talk in real life. So she basically grew up listening to everybody. I'm not sure, she may do hand signals. I don't know how she communicates. She does communicate. She can't talk. I'm going to presume there's some sort of hand signals or something. I've never asked that question. I think I will. But the point is, with her, she's used to just listening. Now, so she goes through long periods of time where she doesn't say anything. And she is getting used more to communicating with me. But to be perfectly honest, she's perfectly happy just sitting there not talking. If it were anybody else, I'd probably go jack shit on it and punish her. But because it's her, I don't. She does comment, and she does make sure to say something occasionally. So I know she's alive and everything's okay. But the point is, she's an exception to something. If for anybody else, there's no way in hell I'd have a sub that or a slave that basically does not talk. But you're talking about somebody who had a real unusual real life circumstance, and the rules are my rules, but in this case I had to modify them in order to do it. In real life and Second Life, that's always been a problem because masters have tended to get rid of her because of that. But she's a real asset to my team, and so no, I didn't. I made an exception for her. But it's not rebellion, it's not meanness. It had to do with her real life circumstances. So I said, yeah. So like I said, don't cut them in granite. Have good rules, but don't make them set up to where. 4, communicate those rules. As obviously we need to communicate rules to slaves so they obey them. The same goes for rules for ourselves. Communicating your rules has some nice benefits. 1, it shows you in control. I will guarantee you there is a whole bunch of you out there that have not sat down and actually told your slaves what the hell you expect of them and what your rules are. And I'll be honest, if you have rules and you enforce them nicely, not calling them names like you bitch or whatever, and you basically said this is who I am and what it takes for me to function, you're being a master. And the girl will relate to that. Because if she's got structure and you give her structure and you stick to that, then she senses your domination. A hell of a lot of problem is masters don't have rules or boundaries. Okay, shows you're in control. You have an understanding of what you want and what you don't, and that you thought about being a master. It also gives the slaves a sense of security to know you have rules too. I have heard this over and over and over again. Girls want a sense of security, and the way they have it is boundaries. You know, how do you approach them? How do they leave you? What are you, just all the way down the line. And that is one of the key areas most people fail. Number 5, remember, man, thou art dust, or get real. These masters who think the world revolves around them need to think again. Humility is a virtue. Even in a person who wields great power, being in control doesn't mean a person needs to be haughty, egotistical, or obnoxious. I don't know how many men just don't get that message. They just don't. You can be in control without being egotistical or obnoxious about it. I'm the man. If you're truly a person born to rule, then you don't need to put on airs. Pretense smells. And even in Second Life, where they can't see your face, they know when you're pretending. We know my girls laugh their ass off at some of the men that come in here and basically try and be a master and pretend to be something they're not. Honesty, sincerity, and generosity have a different odor about them. Integrity and honor are some of the biggest gore qualities. Okay, I'm sorry. I was puzzled by that. Honestly, you can be in control without being an ass about it. The girls know when you're firmly in command of what you want, how you're going to do it, and when you just are winging it, and then demanding and punish them for not knowing. Last one, guys. There's a side of this rule that involves practicality. Your rules need to be... Now, I was a school teacher for years, and they used to call it had to be measurable and enforceable. I had to make school rules. It was supposed to be no more than 6 rules. I kind of broke that with the girls, but the point was that they wanted 6 rules, and what they always said to us is they always asked us a question: was it measurable? Was it enforceable? Can you quantify whether you hit that mark or not. Anybody that's taught knows what I'm talking about. Your rules need to be pragmatic, workable, reasonable. That is, do the girls sense that these make sense? I mean, you can make up anything you want to, but if they're not measurable, they're either doing it or they're not. Enforceable. There are shit I can ask my girls to do, and there's no way in hell I'm going to know whether they're doing it. I can name you any number of things. So make sure if you make a rule that you can enforce it. If they aren't, they'll be honored only in the breaking, and you seem to be living in a fantasy world. It's one thing, of course, to have a rule for a weekend scene. Like, basically get together with a girl for a couple of hours and do it. It's another for having a rule to live out the rest of your life. Stay above it. Just because the world's going, okay, now this goes back to what my girls tell me all the time. Just because the world's going to hell in a handbasket, there's no reason for you to do the same. Have standards and stick to them. That is a big deal for my slaves. And I hear that all the time from them. In fact, I've heard that this week a couple of times. Be who you say you are. Have standards. If you say, I'm going to follow the book and I'm going to buy the book Gory and enough. If I have two girls who have been in Gore for 20 years, they know what the frickin' book says. And if you say, I'm by the book and I'm a strong master and I follow that, and you got girls standing all the time, girls talking back, girls not doing service, meal service and drink service and such. I had a girl run off the other day. I went chasing after her because she just walked away from a drink service. Somebody was visiting and I went chasing after her. Would have killed her ass if I could catch her. But the point of it is, I have been criticized because other people don't have those standards. But the point is, if that's you, stick by it. Women like a guy who knows who they are, will stand by who they are, and not let the world bend them. The world is going sideways. Gore is a hallmark that says this is a standard, a way of living. It is a way of thinking that goes antithetical to the way the world is going right now. When I say the world, I mean it. Most countries of the world are going whack-ditch crazy over what is male, what is female, how male and females are interact, things like that. Gore goes from a very old standard. Men are men. As Tarzan once said, me Tarzan, you Jane. Tarzan had no equivocations of who in the hell he was or Jane's place in his life. And Jane followed his ass all over the jungle. And women will, if you will stand for who you are, not let other people sway you from that or talk you out of it because it's you. And a girl will follow that. Okay, next one's on what to do punishment-wise and why it's important. So we'll do that. Be well.
That's all, folks.